Thanks for joining us for the Member xCite presentation. The Member xCite presentation is informative, interesting to the audience, and showcases the strengths of the presenter as an entrepreneur and their area of expertise. It's not a sales pitch, it's a 10-minute educational and insightful exploration into what they do. And of course, it's exciting.
Darren has an exciting presentation today on branding and what it's really all about. The term branding is thrown around so much these days that it's really hard to define. And at the end of the day, what matters most is that it builds awareness for who you are, what you do, and what you stand for. In this short presentation, we'll explore some great tactical insights into building your brand. For those of you who don't know Darren is a social media and podcast strategist, trainer, coach, keynote speaker, and student of human attention. He started heavily utilizing the power of social media and podcasting to build his photography business and was so amazed with the results, he never looked back. He is now a very active social media marketing practitioner and podcaster who consults with organizations to help them get serious business results, integrating social media and podcasting into their marketing strategy. Social media and a podcast are not just nice to have anymore, they are a must-have. We also like to find out a little bit, we've already done that bit, so Darren, I will hand over to you to present our presentation.
So let me sit up for this so I can get excited. So branding, it's a term that's thrown around all the time these days and it's got a million different meanings. So I'm just going to give you a little take on what branding means to me and what I've learned over the years working with social media and podcasting to build a brand. So first of all, branding and marketing is simply for me about creating awareness for who you are, what you do, and what you stand for. It's all about attention. And if you can know where the attention is, then you can develop content and marketing strategies to play on those areas of attention to build your credibility, build your audience, and establish your brand. And when it comes to branding, remember that branding is not only online, it is offline as well. And I think that's a really important point. Everything we do online and offline needs to be on brand. So let's start off with offline, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about what my take is on online branding. But offline branding is much more than just your logo. A lot of people think that your logo is your brand, your colors are your brand, and that's that. But that might have been the case years and years ago. But nowadays, it's everything. Everything you do, everything you say has to be 100% aligned with your brand. And for me, confusion and inconsistency is the actual antithesis of brand. And you see this a lot as well. People don't take enough time to really make sure that they are constantly showing up in the same way. And I just want to call out BX for this because BX does this incredibly well. Everything that BX does is always on brand in terms of its colors, its logo, even the play on words. Everything starts with an X. So BX and Matt and Loz have done an incredible job in really identifying what their brand strategy is going to be. And they're so consistent, it's incredible. And I think that's really important. Everything we say needs to be consistent, and that also goes for your staff. You can't have messages coming from one manager or the team leader or the director of a company, and a staff member says exactly the opposite to a customer. Everything you say and your company says has to be consistent, and the way that you act, both online and offline, from the top to the bottom, has to be consistent, and that's how you build a brand. And the great examples of this are brands like Google, like Apple, like Microsoft. Anytime you walk into any of those stores, it's always the same experience. It doesn't matter who you talk to, you get the same information, the same experience, and the same service. And that's so important. But including, in further to that, consistency with our marketing material, consistency with our websites, with our blog posts, with our email signatures, with our letterheads, with our thank you slips, your social media platforms, i.e. your logos, the catchphrases you use, the colors, the fonts, the images, the caricatures. Everything has to be consistent, has to be the same messaging, and has to have the same culture and philosophy behind it. And that is basically how you build brand over time. And this doesn't happen overnight. This is a long journey, but it has to be consistent every single day. Just a little note about video and building brand. I think video these days, there's no surprise anymore that video is here to stay. It is one of the most important mediums there is nowadays, and video helps you humanize your brand. In the old days, you could have a Coca-Cola sign and nobody had to know what was behind it. Nowadays, that's not good enough anymore. You have to know who the person is behind the brand. And that's why video is so powerful. And I think it's really important to embrace video as best you can. And people will start to know you, like you, and trust you when they know who the person is or the face is behind the brand. And that's so important. And authenticity is another one. I mean, this also been done to death, but there's a great quote that I read years ago. It says, connections are formed in the cracks. So you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be polished. You don't have to be Hollywood. People respond to people that are human. And if you just be yourself and come across the way you are in your authentic self, you will build brand over time and you'll find your audience, or in respect, your audience will find you. So that's just a little bit about offline branding. And now I just want to talk a bit about online branding. And for me, why do I harp on about social media and podcasting so much? It's because, as I said initially, branding is all about awareness. Where is the awareness these days? It's all on social media. And a podcast strategy is just another extension of your social media strategy. But if I talk about social media in general, everybody's looking at their phone all day long. They're on LinkedIn, they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on YouTube, they're on TikTok, they're listening to podcasts, they're listening to audiobooks. You have to show up there consistently with quality and variety. So here are just 10 quick steps that I've designed to kind of break down a social media strategy, and it can be just rinsed and repeated forever. And this is what I've been doing for the last 2-3 years. And if anybody actually wants a copy of this presentation, please just email me after the meeting and I'll happily send you this, and you can have all this. You don't have to take any photos or take any notes. But number one, identify where your target market is. Where does it live? Is it on Facebook? Is it on Instagram? Is it LinkedIn? Is it YouTube? Is it more corporate? Is it more individual? So you have to know where your market lives, the graphics, the demographics, the echographics. There's a million different ways you can spin it, but you have to know where your customers live. And then once you've done that, build a strong page or presence on those platforms, company and or personal. Some of these platforms will only allow you to build one. Some will allow you to build both. But wherever it is that you're getting a lot of your traction and where you're going to be posting the most is where you're going to have to show up with a strong page. Number three, make content. And content obviously can be made in many different forms. And I always break it down into 5 things: written, audio, video, graphic, and photo. You don't have to be a master at all of them, but the more you can have a little bit of variety to what you do with your social media strategy and your branding strategy does help, because it allows people not to get bored. But some people are better with 1 or 2 than some of the others. So go all in and really, really make quality content in that form. Don't make just short form content, make long form content, make medium form content. You've got to mix it up. You've got to keep giving your audience something new, because otherwise they're going to get bored, and the algorithm is not going to work in your favor. Now, the key to this as well is to leverage that content. A lot of people put out content once and they never revisit it. They never leverage it. And that's the biggest mistake, really, because if you can leverage and stretch that content, you can then go and reuse and repackage and requalify that same content for the next 6 months. So for example, if you've just done a podcast, and people do this with me all the time, they might post a podcast up once and they never do anything else with it. But you now have a 45-minute episode of incredible content, video content, and potentially audio content and written content that you can chop up and use for the next 6 months as part of your branding strategy. So it's really important to remember to stretch your content as much as you can. And remember that every time you get up to do anything, It's an opportunity to create content. Take a screenshot, take a photo, take a little video. Anything you do is an opportunity to create content. And if you can create good quality content, that allows you to build your brand over time. Make sure that content is valuable to your customer and not a sales promotion for you. Now, a lot of people are getting better with this, but I still see this every day, that a lot of people have got the ratio the wrong way around. And the way that I think about this is to say, okay, I would say 80% of your content has to be value to your customer, or utility, or education, or entertainment. 20% is a sales pitch for you. There's nothing wrong with pitching what you do after you have created enough trust and awareness for what you do through your other content, through your educational content. If someone is giving me lots of information for free, I'm very happy to pay for an extra 10 or 20% if it's low cost. And it's the same strategy. So a lot of people promote, and never do anything else. And that's the quickest way to turn your potential customers away. Start posting content every day, multiple times of the day on your platforms of choice. And ideally, it's 2 to 3 times a day. If you can do that, fantastic. There's never, a lot of people ask, is there too much content? Is there any time when people are going to get sick of me? The answer is no, because these days, everybody's audience is being built constantly. You're growing your audience constantly. The amount of competition on social media is like never before. So not everybody's going to see everything you do anyway. So there's never enough content. You can post to your heart's content and nobody will ever get sick of you, because only a small percentage of that content is actually even seen. And people forget about that. So start posting your content regularly. Interact with your audience. If someone puts a comment, make sure you at least like it or put a smiley face or interact with it in some way. Because if you're not, you're basically ignoring your customers. Now, this is a big one. A lot of people don't realize. Do the same thing on as many relevant groups as you can. There are so many incredible groups on Facebook and LinkedIn, for example, that can give you access to hundreds of thousands of potential customers. And if you can take your content that is valuable, that is educational, that is utility, not promotional, and post that up on some of those groups, you over time will then start drawing a lot of that audience to your page and to your community, thereby building your own brand, your own awareness, and your own, the volume of your own group. So a lot of people forget to use their groups. And the same thing goes for hashtags, really. That's another way to do the same thing. If you have a little bit of budget, it's fun to start playing around with a little bit of Facebook and Instagram advertising. My recommendation is to just post for $5 a day, and you can actually just boost posts to the people that already like your page and their friends. And why do I say that? It's because for a very small amount of money, you can already get in front of the people that already know you, that already like you, that already trust you, because you've already built that relationship through your content. You're not going out to conquer the world cold. You can do that, but that is a much more costly exercise. You need to do a lot of testing, and that kind of a marketing campaign can be quite expensive. So I'd say start that way, and then you can always grow later on. Then go back to step 1 and do it all again. And I've been doing this for the last 2-3 years on multiple platforms, and I can tell you that it works if you do it consistently, if you do it with quality, and if you do it with some variety. So that's a great way, just a great little 10-step process to building an online brand. So remember, your marketing branding campaign is the engine that drives your business. Put in the work to maintain it, execute it, and it will take you where you want to go. A lot of people say, I don't have time for marketing. When can I fit in my marketing? When can I fit in my branding? It's actually the opposite. When can I fit in everything else? Because if you don't have a branding campaign, you have no business. Nobody even knows who you are. You have no customers. So I can't stress this enough. If you concentrate on your marketing and branding campaign, everything else will follow. So that's just a little bit about me. Thanks again, guys. If anybody wants this particular presentation, feel free just to let me know and I'll email you a copy. And I would love to open up to any questions if there are any.
Awesome, thanks.
Thanks so much, Darren.
Pleasure. I hope that was nice and simple.
I think we have had some requests for presentation. Does anyone have any questions? If you want to pop your hand up in the chat. Yep, Derek.
Darren, I hear you with you can post all day and people are not going to see all your stuff. That's my frustration. I might spend half a day, a whole day putting a nice newsletter, nice article together, and then I see the stats the next day, 7 people saw it. Or I did my newsletter and I did it on Facebook. I thought, okay, the research says yes, they'll be after dinner, they'll be on there. I have a look the next day, who people liked it. I mean,
yep, great. Couple of points on that. Beautiful. I love that question. First of all, while you're building your audience, that's how it's going to be. One day it's going to be 7, next day it's going to be 10, week after it might be 13, a month later it will be 50, and it takes time. You can't expect to have that kind of traction with one post overnight.
no, but I've been doing this. I rebranded myself a couple of years ago, but I've been sharing the same message on Facebook for years and years.
Okay. Maybe it's another opportunity to kind of tweak the way you position that same message. For example, you mentioned you put together was it a blog post you said?
Yeah, just like my newsletter, for instance, and I just shared it on LinkedIn, and then I shared it on Facebook, and then I've got this free little webinar. So then I did that, and then I shared it on the group. So that's good. I did that last night. Spent about half an hour trying to get the message out there with my groups. But I went back to the original post to the little blurb, and I had a look and I went, oh, holy shit, this is on Sunday night. And I've got 2 people just like, that's it. So,
I think sometimes you'll find, and I find this as well, Derek, is that even though people don't engage in the content, they're still looking at it. Because I'll see people all the time at meetings and they go, oh my gosh, Loz, you've been here, there and everywhere. They've never liked a post. They've never commented on a post. They're just voyeuristically watching what you're doing. Yeah. So don't let the fact that people aren't engaging deter you from the fact of doing it. And another way to get great traction using the BX model is to ask people that you meet at meetings to comment, like and share your posts. So then you're getting more traction because those people are putting it in front of their audiences and giving you more reach. So thinking about the BX model to create more as well. But as does it, sometimes it can be frustrating. I think people are a bit overloaded too. That I think they're not commenting, liking and sharing, but they are reading stuff. So I wouldn't let that be a deterrent.
I think it's also in my content because I'm talking about mental health and resilience, and and you're right. I had a guy say, Derek, love your stuff. Yeah. And yet I haven't seen him for 20 years and he was never commented. And so if I say my kitten was rescued out of the tree, I'll get 100 people say, oh, wow, that's amazing. But anything deep and serious, you're right, they tend to not. So, okay, thanks. Good message.
And I also think those personal posts, they're an opportunity for you to be like, they do get more traction. So interspersing them into your other content is a really good strategy, that personal stuff. People just love it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
A lot of people, it's always, remember not to kind of go for the sensationalism, go for the quality, because as Loz said, even the fact that you're just posting and people see Derek Rogers, the Thrive Movement Australia, even that is branding in itself. Just because they're constantly seeing that logo, they're constantly seeing your name, even if they don't read what you have to say, they might say, someone might ask them tomorrow, who is that guy that does that? I saw him the other day, he put something up on, let me have a look. So it's subliminally still branding because you're just showing up. Doesn't even matter if people are commenting or liking or trusting. But another great way to leverage what you're doing is to say, take that blog post, chop it up into a couple of lines, little bits and pieces, put a graphic on top of it and post it out, repost it out in little bite sizes that are a bit more fun. And you can get really creative and take that blog post and use that for the next month in a few different ways. So you kind of, and then you can drive people back to the main post. You can say, link in the comments for the full blog post. So there are ways to continually drive people back to the same content, and you don't have to recreate the wheel every day, but you just have to be a little creative in how you position it across your audience. But remember that branding and marketing is all about just showing up, and the fact that you're just showing up is already working. Just takes time.
Could I add to that, Derek? Remember, Darren's first point is identifying where your target market lives. and make sure that you're posting in the places where the people you want to reach live, where they play. For example, just recently, I've never been in Instagram. I thought it was, but just lately I'm sort of having a bit of a dabble in there. And despite being in business for 20 years, you know, I put a post there and one person sees it, and there's my mate who lives around the road. So I'm going through that there, but that's because I've identified that not many people who need funerals are on LinkedIn. So my website videos for business, my target market's in LinkedIn, but people down the street who've just lost a loved one, they're probably more likely to find me on Insta or Facebook. So horses for courses. That's a really important point at the beginning of Darren's presentation. First thing you've got to do.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Paul. Does anyone else have any questions for Darren? Really great.
I had something I wanted to say just to Derek, that maybe you could work on your copywriting a little bit. So rather than sending out a newsletter, which kind of doesn't sound all that exciting, maybe you could
hang on, it is exciting. I'm giving people tips to thrive in these challenging times. What could be more exciting than that?
Absolutely. But what you're saying is correct. What words? The copy is important. The copy is important. Use the right words to get people, to engage people and entice them to come in further and take the time to read. So the copy is important for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Bronya.
And
does anyone else have any more questions?
For anyone that's seen Darren, you know, videos are a really big part of this too. So he does. I remember us taping one of his very first podcasts out the back of a cafe at a BX meeting in Alexandria one day. Put the taping stuff on the table in between us, and off we went. But you know, he does, every time I open up my feed, he's there. So you know, if you were looking for someone to do podcasting or any type of marketing, he's going to be the person you think of just through, you know, the fact that he is showing up all the time. So it's good advice.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Darren. Fantastic presentation today.